Hi, I'm Thalia Kidder. I'm Senior Advisor on Women's Economic Rights at Oxfam.
And I'm Jane Remme. I'm the Program Coordinator for Women's Economic Empowerment and Care at Oxfam. And today we're going to talk to you about how to achieve equality for women at work.
Our title is a little misleading, but it's also accurate. We are going to start by talking about women in work, women's economic empowerment. Many development actors have been focusing very much on getting women into work. And our critique is that this focus is often too narrow, that it's not just a matter of creating some jobs and women get these jobs and then they thrive. It's actually that many other changes are required to have women's economic empowerment. Women need good jobs, they need decent work. We need to address sex segregation that often keeps women in very insecure and precarious work, part-time work, low-skilled work. Women need training and skills. Women need to have protections and enforcement of labor standards. We also need to consider violence against women and unsafe transport that may mean that women can't keep the jobs that they get into. We need to have women have strong organizations to be able to claim rights at work. They need to be able to have political and social rights and a voice in policy. We need social norms, positive social norms, and women should have control over assets and financial services. And then there's the question of time. Simply put, women don't have time for paid work. They don't have enough time because they have too much unpaid work. And this is a very large hidden inequality. So we're going to be talking to you about unpaid care work.
And so what is unpaid care work? It's also been called domestic work, household work, reproductive work, and part of women's triple burden. And it means the direct care of people, so children, for example, feeding, bathing them, the domestic work that allows you to care for people, so cooking, cleaning, also washing clothes and fetching water or fuel, and some care work is done for others in your community, perhaps care for elderly or neighbors. But what we'd like to say is that care is not a burden, care is a good thing. We want more care for people, we want care to be as widespread and as possible, and we think it has a positive impact on well-being and development. More care reduces vulnerability and inequality. What is problematic is how unequal the responsibility is for providing care. It should be that states, businesses, civil society, and families share the responsibility for providing, paying for, investing in services that support care. It's called The Care Diamond by Shara Razavi from Unraised. But in reality, across the world, women and girls spend much more time than men on unpaid care work. Women have heavy and unequal responsibility for care. This limits women's involvement in the labor market. It affects productivity. It limits economic growth and poverty reduction. Long hours of care, as the UN's Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty wrote, condemns women to poverty.
Really? Is it this bad? Is it this big an issue? Many development practitioners have had their doubts. But in 2012, we interviewed women in agricultural enterprises that were supported by Oxfam, and many women said that they couldn't be leaders of these enterprises because they couldn't renegotiate their household responsibilities. And they told us that they only had often 8 hours a week, or 10 or 15 or 20 hours a week to work in the enterprises. And you can't really develop a business when you only have this much time to do it in. So this changed the minds of many of our colleagues. The global data is actually similar. A recent World Development Report confirmed that women, on average, spend twice as much time as men on housework and 4 times as much time as men on childcare. That's often 1 to 3 hours more a day on housework. But actually, poor women's unpaid work is much more extreme than these global averages. We had a recent survey of 2,200 women and men in 5 countries in rural areas, and found that on average, where men were doing 1 hour a day of care work, women were reporting almost 6 hours a day of care work, which is 5 hours a day more on average of care work every day. And this doesn't even count unpaid subsistence agricultural work. Moreover, women are responsible to look after children and elderly an average of 11.5 hours a day. So this means that women don't have a choice on the paid work that they do. It's very hard to leave the house if you're watching kids for 12 hours a day, 11.5 hours a day. So women don't have time for paid work because they have too much unpaid work. And to achieve equality in paid work, we need to address unpaid work, especially invisible care work.
It's also relevant for women's empowerment, including, for example, women's political participation. Women cannot participate in public life if their care responsibilities are heavy and unequal. But also for the women in leadership. They absorb multiple demands of household care work, community activism, productive work, and their leadership duties, which often means that sleep, non-work, and self-care are completely deprioritized. Further, women's leadership development is interrupted by their care responsibilities. For instance, a sick mother-in-law typically means that a woman leader will have to put her leadership on hold for a while, or when she has small children, her leadership development again is interrupted in ways that actually men are not disadvantaged. So what could be done to change this? Diane Elson has a simple way of expressing the vision. The first is to recognize care in development in national statistics, to reduce what is difficult and inefficient in care tasks, to redistribute the responsibility from women to men, but also from families to the state, to businesses, and to the community. And Oxfam, with ActionAid and IDS, has developed an additional R, which is representation, and the representation of carers in front of duty bearers.
Right. So care work is work, and one important part of how to achieve equality for women in work is to address women's heavy and unequal care responsibilities, to recognize care, to reduce the difficult tasks, to redistribute the responsibility for care, and carers' representation and decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you.